How you doing? I want to try to take you through a couple of points in your attic. You can obviously see we're in your space here. Attic has about 8 inches of loose fill fiberglass, and that's a 2.73 R value per inch. So you're less than the 49 that's required. You can see in the back there where at the eaves the baffles do extend. However, if you were to add insulation, it wouldn't be enough. And what I'm doing here is just demonstrating from another job how we extend the baffles for folks, and then we blow the insulation and make sure we maintain that ventilation channel. And I wanted you to get a quick look at your knee wall and start to think about what that looks like from the attic. And you can see your return in the attic that kind of comes up to that wall. And as a point of reference, you can see how it comes out in your room. And then over there to the left, you see the hatch, and that'll also give you some perspective. But I also want to take a moment and just show you how we treat the hatch and what we do for the hatch, because obviously, as I was mentioning, and you can see from thermal imaging that the hatch is just a weak spot, not only in the closet, but also for the entire attic system, insulation system. So we cut the rigid foam board and we cut it to size for the size of the hatch, and then we put it together so that it doesn't, fall apart on you, and then we glue it to the original panel. So now that insulation is on the backside, and then we put the weather stripping around the lip of it so that when it sits in the hole there and sits on the trim, it makes a nice seal. Before we get to the knee wall, I also wanted to point out a few other things in your attic. For example, air sealing the attic floor for penetration, such as the flue. And this is the flue that runs from the furnace in the basement. And what I'm doing here is just pulling a little bit of insulation. You see how it's discolored? And that's a telltale sign that air is just flowing through that area, which again is a place we want to seal up. Plumbing vents that run through walls, uh, wires that run down the wall to the electrical below. All those holes you can see again from the discolored insulation. All those create air gaps, places that air is communicating between the inside and the attic. And the whole idea is to seal those up. So how do we do it? Well, we use spray foam, one part, and you can see what the guys are doing here. They're sealing up all the cracks and crevices, not only around the wires, but also around all of the tops of the walls. And by doing so, it just stops and prevents the air from communicating, and it just makes the insulation work a whole lot better for you, and it decreases drafts. So back to the knee wall. This is the back side. We're kind of coming up to where we're above the closet and above the bathroom area. And from the thermal imaging of the area above the closet, you can see what's going on with the heat bleeding through the insulation and through the wall into your home. And that's in both locations across that entire back knee wall adjacent to the bathroom. And I want to show you what's going on and why that's happening. It's because, as you see there, the insulation is just not in great contact with the drywall surface. And as a result, the thermal imaging that you saw before is what we're going to get. We're going to get heat that just bleeds right through because the insulation is not, again, in good contact with the surface to really be working the way it should for you. And that kind of is the case all along that knee wall. And I wanted to just make sure that I showed it a few times from a few different angles. And you'll notice that this is the section that's near the return, and you can see more of the same. Dark spots showing that air is communicating in those areas, through those areas, as well as insulation that's just slightly pulled away. It's not in great contact with the surface. And once again, the result is hot spots and just unnecessary heat that's going to build up and come into the home because the barrier is just not sound. And as I was saying, like when the house was built, they put the insulation in to pass the code, but they didn't really take any extra, steps. So how do we take care of a knee wall? Well, as you can see, what we do is we get in there and we seal up all those cracks and crevices, much like we do around the floor, around penetrations, anywhere air can get through. And then we cut the insulation to size. R13 is the recommended level for Maryland. We get everything fitting in nice and snug, but there's one more step to all of this, which is the part that really makes it work, and that is the final barrier, the air barrier, and that's the sheathing that we put on. And you can see how he's pulling it nice and snug and tight, and we staple it to the studs and to the framing so that everything stays in place. And the end result is a buttoned up knee wall. And then you can see another example of a finished project here, a wall that's similar to yours with the insulation blown in as well. And you can see how things just kind of all look snug with the ventilation there in the back. And that is, an attic that is going to perform much, much better for you all. Thanks for watching.